I'm basically, I'm basically just going to say I pretty much did my check-in. I'm arriving fluey, and I'm bringing a nice snotty head, and I will pass to Doug.
Um, how am I arriving? What am I bringing? I'm arriving. Sort of the most dominant thing is sort of heavy in my physical body, just really feeling weight 6 ways to Sunday. Like energetically, what's going on in the world, physically, what's going on with, we had polar vortex weather. Now it's like, above freezing. It's if we were tropical fish, we'd all be dead. Um, and Yeah, just feeling weight. Um, and um, Bringing openness to what's to emerge. Ruth, for you.
Thanks, Doug. Yeah, appreciated that. I am arriving, I mean, it's day 3 of return from Europe, so I still like a little bit of like fatigue, definitely fatigue in my system. But I don't know if this is how you guys feel, but for me with jet lag, it sort of feels like my body's there and my energy body is like somewhere very much outside of my physical body, and so it feels like today it's much more kind of, it's like here-ish, hovering nearby. It's what it feels like, kind of starting to land here. So I feel a bit more in place, but not quite completely. Um, uh, and Kind of working with the possibility of feeling overwhelmed and making different choices instead of going down that trajectory to instead, okay, what's grounding, connection to earth, what's my choice right now? So coming back to kind of choicefulness. Um, uh, and then I'm bringing, yeah, excitement. It's really magical what unfolds here, and it's actually relaxing for me, and that's quite nice. So just looking forward to enjoying that. Yeah, Trey, over to you.
So I want to offer up that I'm acutely aware of the contrast between where you are, Doug, and where I am. And so I want to be sensitive to that. I am feeling a lightness in my being that I don't think I've ever experienced in my life. So it is a peacefulness that surpasses understanding. And I'm just relishing in it and being in awe of it and curiosity about it in a way. And it's not because I have any sense of anything that's going on. I am completely in the unknown at the moment, and in almost every way possible, except for maybe one. And so I'm here and riding the waves, and whatever shows up, shows up. And with that, I will pass to Parm.
Thanks, Trey. I'm going to be completely audacious now and say, does that have anything to do with personal relationships?
No, actually
Oh,
not. No, like, no.
okay. Okay. I just wondered.
Like, sincerely, no, there's no, I mean, you can ask. I have no problem sharing. It's no, like, when I say I know nothing, I know nothing. Like, about the only thing I know right now is that I have a little bit of consistent income coming in. And I do mean a little bit, but it's consistent. That's about the
Yeah.
only thing that I know. Yeah, everything else is,
Okay.
yeah. But thanks
Okay.
for the vote of I mean, I would love it. Yeah, bring it on. But no, it's not here. Not at this time,
Okay.
anyhow. But thank you for asking.
Okay, that's okay. You know me, Nosy Parker. Um, so I'll start a little bit kind of rewind, because at the time I'd got this horrible flu-y thing. I felt as though, because I'm so chilled, like you guys kind of pointed out in Portugal, and I don't get upset easily and all those things, I kind of started seeing myself as a bit of a superwoman entity. And so I'm like, I did all the family constellation training, and I'm like, I get a little bit more about energy works. So I'm going to go back into the fray with my married family, that's causing kind of various challenges, and always have, to be fair. And so I tried out some stuff. And then afterwards, I kind of felt like maybe I'm like, is it Icarus that flew too close to the sun? Everything like melted, and energetically we just kind of went, dropped down. I think that wasn't all of it. I think that was part of why I kind of got that flu-y thing, but there were other things as well. And then because in the past there's been this cycle of, I do something that is very full of integrity and non-judgment or whatever it is, and then I feel strong afterwards, although it's tricky to sometimes to actually do it. And so I'm like, yeah, I've got this. I'm going to do this really hugely integrity filled thing. And yeah, it kind of didn't seem to have much impact at all. And I went to see my ex yesterday, but then energy works in funny ways. So you can't always say that it's had no impact. So he was like, oh, so you did this little thing, whatever it was, and it's made no, it hasn't made any changes. You did this teeny tiny thing, and here I am, making sandwiches and doing the real work. So I said, oh really? I spent like £1,000 training myself up to get to know about energy and trauma. I went to Portugal and got more training. I've been following all these workshops and everything else, and then I tried all of some of the stuff out. So you think that's nothing? Okay, fine. But anyway, so I'm back to my more light-hearted kind of authentic me, and I think that strength has come back. It is coming back, as it kind of has done in past patterns, and it's to do with like, when have you done enough to break a bond or a contract that's energetic? It's kind of, I'm playing around a little bit there. So anyway, that's historic in a sense. So the other thing that's more current right now is I feel I've gained a a clarity around integrating some of the conversations that I've been having in Winfinity, some of the learnings there, some of the ones I was having in Portugal with Kylie and the rest of you, and some of the stuff about affordances perhaps. And I've been, you know, like I like just go and honour groups where I feel there's this energy there. So I'm going to go and just observe and see. Okay. So CABI, which is Community Assembly British Isles, I've been watching them with interest, and they've been basically following the principles that we've been talking about since their inception. John has been the person who started it, and he has got shed loads of integrity. And I've been writing up, like, so this is what I'm seeing here. And the purpose of that was going to be that I was going to share it with the members of CABI to provide like a coherence around what I see, like this is what I see. And I've got the information from different places, like recordings, talking to members, looking on the website. And as I'm writing it, I'm thinking, yeah, you know, this is falling into those things that we've been talking about. You know, they're kind of ticking all those things in how they're delivering what they're delivering. And so as I was writing it, that's what I was doing just now, in fact, and I've nearly finished. I'm thinking this is probably going to be a good case study for people in our area of work to look at a setup where, because it's very rare, it's a very rare thing. Yes, Trey.
So, Harm, sometimes when you speak in generalities. So I'm going to ask you to be a little more specific. Okay. What is it that you're sensing is rare? And what is it that you're sensing is a case study?
The case study is how the community assemblies British Isles have addressed the work of calling in whatever's needed for the transition.
Okay. And what's the rare piece?
The rare piece is that they understand that it's about relationships. They understand that it's about safe spaces. They understand about boundaries. They understand it's not about money. They understand about emergence and allowing emergence to take place.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. That's helpful. Beautiful. Thank you for that.
And also
So
they have not got this energy of us and them that I find in a lot of places. So there's a unity around it.
So I just gonna pause you just for I want to, are you complete? Because it sounded like Doug had a question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Doug.
Can you share sort of purpose dimension you found in doing this for you as agent within, that context, as a voice within that context?
Can I share? Sorry, I haven't got the.
So, so you sort of emergently, found yourself creating this picture. And in being pulled to that, what was your underlying higher, purpose, value? You may not have, made it express or explicit. But could you do that now? Benefit of, like, hindsight, Monday morning quarterbacking, what you just did.
Why did I sit down and start writing something? What
Yeah,
was the
what was the internal pull for you, and
Yeah.
your ownership in the doing of that?
Okay, so it was that I'd been following what they had been doing for a time now, and so I kind of have this antenna, like, yeah, over there, you need to pay attention over there. And at first, like, I could see they've got like elements of stuff, but I wasn't sure they'd got enough. But as time went on, and I was listening to recordings and I was observing members, I could see that what they were attracting into the space was quality. It was like people who had it. It's difficult to kind of explain, go into what it is, but just trust me when I say these people have got it. Okay.
I refer to that, by the way, as of being of my tribe.
Okay.
But I've never been able to get further than that. So I just offer that as a shorthand.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And I was watching things unfolding and listening to John, who is the person who started it off, talking about how he would use voting and how he would not use voting. Why? Because they're actually in it, they're doing it. They're not like writing books about it or having intellectual discussions. And so he was talking about, what kind of structures are going to work, and that in other places, and I can vouch for that as well, that people are still looking at the leadership model of the pyramid and, oh, well, this person started it, they know everything, and everything's going to go up here and then get filtered down. And he's like, no, that's not the way to do it. The way to do it is horizontally, that you empower people. It's kind of like having a negative space. So, for example, you see, the problem is that we're living within a matrix that has inverted everything and made good bad and bad good and all the rest of it. We are, what's the word? We are operating within it without our consent as living beings. We're operating within it. We've been made into straw men. So this is like going into the technicalities. So I don't know if you're into that or not. You don't have to be. But because it's the water people are living in, they can't see that that's what's happening. So John can see it, and he's basically saying to them, here's a safe space. I'm going to call it a PMA, Private Members Association. And the people he's got in the Private Members Association, they also, like Winfinity or Animus, have got lawyer type backgrounds. Now, most lawyers can't see the water that they're swimming in. They're just following the mainstream lawyer route. But the ones that do see it, and Doug, you're one of them as well, they're useful to have because they can see like both things. And so they have a better idea of, here's a piece, a puzzle piece that can bridge this and that, because they understand both, the nature of both. So one of the things that has emerged from John's first community assembly, which is in Cornwall, interestingly enough, is that in Cornwall there is a little legal loophole, which means that the legal system that's operating in the rest of the UK is not operating in Cornwall, something to do with the tin mines or something. And they used to have something called a stannery system, which was, it was designed around people that used to work in tin mines. And so this has created an opportunity, like a little loophole, for them to introduce that as their community law system. And so they've also found premises, somebody's donated them premises, and they're calling it a court, something or other, beginning with court with a K. So they're using like historical precedents to introduce a system of justice that is predicated on natural law, whereas the rest of mankind is stuck within this horrible, complex, sticky, yucky stuff where no one is getting any justice unless they can, well, they're not getting justice, because if you've got a top lawyer and you're doing harm, that's not really justice to get a lawyer to, so you can continue to do harm, right? So the fact that that was the thing that's emerged out of the first community assembly, for me, is a sign that these people have got, are open to things that the universe is allowing to emerge. And so, although at the present moment, oh, and then the other thing about relationships is this, that they're training up peacekeepers so that these peacekeepers understand the difference between the different levels of law. And they have uniforms, and so they go around and they make, they're having a presence in the community, which is great. You know, it's about flesh and blood, you know, face-to-face relationships. What they've managed to do is to influence the police in the area to understand that when somebody turns up at somebody's house, bailiffs turn up because you know, they're gonna owe the state whatever it is because they haven't paid mortgages or whatever. They've helped the police to understand that the role of the police is not to support the bailiffs, that the breach of peace, in fact, is the bailiff breaching the peace of the person that's got the property. And so as a result of that, that's created a shift so that the police now, if it's a CABI member, CABI is Community Assembly British Isles, the police now will, if they do turn up, they understand that they're supporting the householder. Now, for the rest of the people living in Kernow and Cornwall, where they've got this going on, they're still in the matrix system. They don't know. So for them, the police are still doing it the old way. But for the people that have taken the trouble to educate themselves about natural law, the police are acting in a different way. So what that means, it might not mean a great deal, but it's the beginning, it's the seed of a framework that once people get educated and get to embody what justice is and what their part is in creating justice, sometime in the future, that framework's there for them. So that's just some of the things that I can share, that I'm writing that in what I'm writing up.
Your feedback or clarifying questions for Parm?
They've got a lot of healers. There's a lot of new modalities emerging that these healers are privy to. And they are also, they've got this sovereign energy where they will find out about things like private members associations and what do we need to know, what do we need to do. And so, although in reality a private members association is a neutral space that you can then do whatever you want to do in that neutral space, you need people of that caliber to be there to create the pioneer energy, or I don't know if pioneer is the right word, to create the first set of whatever's going to come from there. You need people who are like that to start something off, because if you've got people who are coming at it from the hierarchical mindset, you're not going to get the right kind of energy flowing down.
I did have a question, actually. Oh, and hello to this creature. Who's this?
This is Chloe,
Hello, Chloe.
who decided to join the session.
Grateful for your energy, Chloe.
She's gorgeous. She's absolutely gorgeous, and I think she knows it. But
That's yes. Thank you for
Yeah,
gracing
you're
us with your presence, Chloe. Parm, I'm wondering if, I mean, it was really helpful to hear you kind of list some of what you witnessed within this group that's working. And of course, and then you just elaborated further with more elements of that. Like what I hear is kind of like a savviness about the way things are, and like a strong connection with for lack of a better way of putting it, the way they want things to be. Are there other unique, like, is there anything particularly unique about this group in particular, or other unique elements that you might highlight?
Other unique elements. Is there any particular thing that you're wondering about? No?
No, I'm just curious about like continuing to learn about the characteristics or the practices that have supported a group to be more successful in that way.
They've got some definite kind of elements of how they organize. One of them is that in order to have a community assembly, that you need 3 people as a minimum and a maximum of 9. What else? I mentioned about they've got lawyers, and so they have, it's like they've got the potential to allow the way that they've arranged it so that it's not a pyramid. What they're allowing people to do is to just do what they're doing anyway. They're not kind of saying, oh, you've got to do this and then that. It's like, just do what you know you're doing, depending on who's there. Just explore stuff, see what is emerging. That cabby, that's the first cabby that John has put into place in Cornwall. He sees himself as an administrative function, so he will not do anything around making decisions or anything like that, but he is giving people the framework around like rules around voting. So for example, if it's a trust, what he said is that you would need 80% consensus in order to change. He said if it's a constitution, maybe not a trust. If it was a constitution, you would need 80% consensus before you can change anything in the constitution. And for that reason, he is not introducing a constitution, he's introducing a framework. In a framework, what would happen is that you would have people who want to explore some kind of initiative or other. And so you would ask, okay, so who is interested in this initiative? And only the people who vote yes would then go away and do the exploration. So everybody wouldn't be subject to action that somebody else has voted in for the group. You only act on what you feel and what you voted for. In the past, what they did was that they tried to do voting across the board. So for example, there's a community assembly in Devon, and they were going to merge with the Cornwall because they're right next door to one another, but people didn't vote. They didn't get enough voters. And then afterwards, so he said, okay, well, we didn't get enough yeses, so therefore we're not going to do it. And then people were saying, oh yes, but we wanted it to happen. Can we vote now? So it's like this old culture of being laissez-faire and understanding like responsibility and, standing up to the mark when it comes to these things. Whereas John has put down very firm things that he then follows through on. He doesn't kind of say, okay, we'll have another vote. He's like, okay, if you're not going to do this, we're going to have to try something else. So it's a culture of exploration that I'm seeing, and seeing what's working in practice and what's not working. And the fact that he's going hungry and sleepless, because at the moment he's been the only one that's kind of held that whole space, but not because he's the only one with the answers. So there's a difference. Yeah, like what Trey had gone through, exactly.
Strikes me as the extent of the progress that's been made. I know it might seem to others as insignificant or not enough, right? What is enough? It also doesn't surprise me that it's happening in the UK. I mean, technically speaking, the UK is the oldest in terms of remnants of regulations, policies, government, right? I mean, most of the other governments are younger And so it's experiencing the transition. It's part of the reason why I pay attention to human learning systems and what it's doing inside of government for public service over there. It's kind of like the canary in the coal mine, right? When we give attention to those older systems and how they're breaking down and how they're establishing, I'm not sure if that's the right word, re-emerging, I don't know what the word is. What's occurring, let's just keep it generic and say what's occurring over there has flickers of what's possible. And I'm just grateful that there are flickers of it happening. Now, is it imperfect? Hell yeah. You know, I'm sure Kylie could speak to the imperfectness in certain spots, and so could Doug. But it is a flicker of change. It is a flicker of not just change, transition. And I appreciate you sharing some of those details, Parm, because I think it weighs into our conversation here. It's why you're here. And I agree with you. Yes, you do have an antenna. I wouldn't be here right now if you didn't have an antenna. So I am grateful, and I'm sensing I'm complete, at least for now.
So I'm going to see if I can talk without coughing up a fit. So bear with me. I may actually have to disappear again. Actually, I don't have so much a critique, but more of a sense of this is interesting. Like, this is interesting. It's sort of exciting, right?
Juicy. It's juicy.
It's yeah. There's definitely some juice in it. And so some of the things that I wrote down as you were talking there is it's like the shift from, let's say, the arena-centered type of governance or voting, and doing this kind of, Fosbury flop, which is just like, you just got to get over the bar and then that's the decision as to whether everything happens or not. It's instead like these votes are more about the, if you're accepting the invitation, if you're going into the space, if you're, interested in doing whatever the thing is. And then the barrier, if there is one, and correct me if I'm wrong, seems to be that there is a quorum of at least 3. So to make it community, to make it an assembly, not just one person going and doing whatever they think is the right thing to do. Right. So something's getting put up and then there needs to be at least 3 people. So I like the sound of that. Also, when you were describing about the police or the peacekeepers and the bailiff and whatnot, I like the frame breaking that's going on there, that sort of perspective shift. Because I don't even know if I'd call it educated, but this idea of, I keep going back to that idea of that it's easier to act your way into new thinking than to think your way into new acting. So when people are seeing this kind of thing happening, it doesn't just open that particular key. For at least some people, it's kind of like, oh, this is interesting. Where else could I apply that perspective? So I guess what I'm seeing is that this is a healthy form of curation that sort of seems to be bubbling up, and that I like. They might be thinking of it as exploring. I'm not sure that it's entirely exploring at this point, it sounds more like, okay, let's try just some different configurations in order to enable exploring, if that makes sense.
Mm.
You know, so
That's useful to know where it is on the chirotic flow.
yeah, it's sort of sounding like this, it's the trying to get a good kind of setup to be able to do curation at least. Yeah. Which is good, because that opens up the space for everything else to happen. And maybe that's what I'm sort of picking up the most, is that this sort of feels like it's opening up space that maybe was a bit stuck before. So yeah. So I'm not going to critique this. I'm just kind of going, oh, it's a nice story. It's nice to hear that this is happening. So thank you for sharing. I'm done.
And I giggle a little bit when people use language like 80% consensus. Just, it makes me giggle because it's not accurate.
Okay.
Consensus is 100%. We can't get to consensus. This is part of the issue. And so we vote, right? And vote is majority rule. But there's a middle ground. And that is that arena of consent.
Or maybe he said consent. That might be just me.
Okay, so I just want to offer it up. There's consensus.
Yeah.
And then there's majority rule and voting, which has a minority and a majority. And in the middle, you have consent. And what the muscle that we're cultivating, and I don't know if optimizing is the right word, but I'm just going to use the word optimizing just for brevity's sake, is optimizing for consent. And so when I hear what you're talking about, and I hear that you're talking about whoever says yes, become the explorers, right? And then they go, and there needs to be at least 3 of them. That's consent. That's a consent framework, not a consensus framework. So to say 80% consensus it's kind of like blending consensus with voting.
Yeah, well, that's probably me more than them.
Yeah. So and please, I'm just offering this up. So when you're doing your writing,
yeah, I get
sort
that.
of keep that in mind,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And what we've lost is that consent is based in listening. Consent is based in listening. And so what I'm hearing from you, Parm, is that, and I'm going to use the word framework loosely because you used it, it's a listening framework. Because what's happening is you have citizens listening to needs. You have police listening to citizens. You have, right? And so I want to just offer that up, that's part of what I'm hearing. I'm not saying I'm right. That's what I'm hearing. And so I want to throw it out to you. Does that resonate? Does that feel like it's landing?
Yeah, that's helpful to clarify. It's like what you said, the more that you listen, the more things get clarified and you have more coherence and cohesion. So that's helpful. And I'm sure you've said that thing about consensus and consent before, but it's like,
yeah, it takes an example sometimes to sort of start parsing it, because it's like colors of a rainbow, right? Where does one color end and another color begin? It's not like there's a hard line. The thing that I want to also draw attention to is what Kylie commented on, which was this idea of the votes aren't really votes. They're about accepting an invitation. So again, let's get the word voting out of it, because voting conjures up images of majority, minority, winners, losers. right? It's not voting. What's happening is there is a environment that has been cultivated where individuals are sensing into their own ability to respond to an invitation. So remember the conversations: appreciation, possibility, invitation,
Mm-hmm.
dissent, responsibility. What is my ability to respond? Okay.
Mm.
The opportunity to engage in dissent, to actively be in conversation about dissent, and then the ability to respond to the invitation. It's a response hyphen ability framework. So just offering those sort of dot connectings, whether they land or not.
Yeah, I'll write that in. Thank you. Mm.
So Kylie is clearly having challenges with coughing her face off. So she says, I was associating 80% consensus with constitution-based organization, not with what Cabby is doing. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just attempting, whether or not I'm succeeding, we'll see. I'm attempting to connect what you're sharing, Harm, with concepts.
Mm.
If you want to say frameworks, it's a pattern. It's a pattern integrity, right? With the pattern integrity, so that there's some connecting of the dots. I'm excited by this. There's definitely juice here.
Mm.
Yeah.
Interesting about the words. That was what Doug and Kylie were.
Can we push
Something
pin that
over.
just for a moment? Ruth had something. Let's
Okay.
push pin that, Ruth.
But appreciating that theme as well, Parm. Did I share 2 weeks ago? Did I share about kind of some of my exploration of no, personally, internally?
No,
Yeah,
as in no, N-O or
yeah,
K?
yeah. No as in N-O.
Yeah, you shared about the journeying that you had been doing, and you shared about the
Yeah, I think, or maybe 3 weeks ago it
about
was.
Jazzland and
Yeah,
about
Oh yeah, I love that. Yeah.
at the birth of Jazzline.
but I can't recall about the no. Can you just maybe touch on that?
This is all coming up as you talk, Trey, about, and as this is also where having had the opportunity to participate in Eighth Flame and kind of practice this more with you and the group of that, like experiencing dissent and really moving through dissent. If I look at my life outside of spaces that you're in, Trey, that almost never happens. And if I look at like okay, this should, sorry, lots of pieces here. One is like, I think internally my system has understood no in my environment as a break in relationship. And so it's actually felt scary. It's felt scary to experience no, instead of really starting to learn that no is an invitation for more listening. That's what I hear you saying. And then that, yeah, exactly. And also recognizing, because then like that listening must go inwards and outwards, which is where a little bit Jazzland and my adventures there came in, because I in order to truly express my dissent, and dissent even being like, I just need something different than what is here now. And I need to go somewhere else to give that to myself. Like dissent, even just in terms of, I need something different than the others around me right now, requires a deep internal listening also. Yeah, I think I'll pause there. That's some of the pieces that's coming up here as we explore this.
Yeah, it is a little bit like if you're setting a community assembly, that's your jazz land. You decide how people operate within that jazz land. Absolutely.
And one of the things that you haven't witnessed yet, Ruth, which is what Winfinity is leaning more into right now, is what we call interaction agreements. Okay. And interaction agreements are regardless of task and regardless of an entity, so to speak, the mission or vision of an entity. It's about this configuration of humans are together. They've been drawn in. They are feeling a resonance. Each of them carries a piece of the puzzle. Therefore, how are we agreeing to interact with each other first and foremost before we start getting sucked into the vortex of, oh, but we're here for Winfinity, or we're here for Animus, or we're here for Trey. No. Who are the individuals in the room? Each of the individuals have agency. They are feeling a resonance. They have been drawn in. How are we agreeing to interact with each other? And we actually have a template that gets turned bespoke based upon the individuals in the space. And it's juicy as anything, right? It's super fun. Now, it's taking time right now. It took the Winfinity core over 6 months just to get the bespoke elements into the interaction agreement. 6, almost 7, almost 8 months. That's a long time. Most people don't have the patience for that. But it's the first one of its kind. And what it does is it sets an example. And once you have an example that you can show people so that they can start getting a picture of, oh, that's where we're going. And you give them the opportunity to do some of those other pieces asynchronously instead of synchronously at every belaboring step of the equation. Right? This is where Flint comes in with regard to the software, because if you have to go through everything from scratch every single time, you won't catch momentum. But the first initiation of it, yes, it's slow and it's not for everybody, and that's okay. The ones that feel drawn in, the ones that feel called, lean into it. And then more people start. It's got a ripple effect. It's got a what's the word? There was that video that you put forward, Doug and Kylie, about, is it sympathetic vibration? And how sympathetic vibration draws in, attracts in, and how we're so used to creating by pushing out. Mm. There's a magnetic pull. There's a magnetic impulse of the work that we're doing. And yes, it feels laborious. Yes, it feels like it takes forever. Yes, because it's setting a new tone that is counter to all of this conditioning that's buzzing around us. But once that seed is locked in, it creates a magnetic pull. And that magnetic pull is evidencing itself now. And we have the science to back it up. It's just not known in a commonplace manner. So these things that are happening, like with Cabby, like inside of Winfinity, the people who are holding the torch are suffering. I can speak personally about the suffering, but the heavy lifting is now starting to happen collectively. And it's just a matter of time.
So I'm just wondering if you start off with somebody who has a very high resonance because they've done the heavy emotional lifting and all of that, that I'm just wondering what impact would that have on the need to have an interaction agreement if there were 3 such people that were resonating in the same jazz land.
You always do an interaction agreement of some form. The reason being is that it's the biggest arguments, the biggest conflicts don't happen when people are on opposite sides of the fence. They happen when people think they're on the same page. And then they find out they're not even in the same book.
Yeah, and I've seen that happen, but generally it happens when people think that they've got it right because they understand, all the stuff about straw man, and that person doesn't. So therefore, they're going to feel annoyed that that person doesn't know that. Whereas somebody who is truly coming at it from a high resonance will not get triggered by that.
So what I would like to offer up to you is that to make it about what they know isn't the point. It's not about what they know or what they don't know. It's about, are they willing to listen to each other and ask clarifying questions of each other and not just resort to opinion ping pong? It's about the agreement to interact. It's about how you're interacting, not about the topic, not about the task. So sure, they may know similar things that add to the resonance of what is drawing them together. That doesn't necessarily mean they've come to agreement on how they're going to interact with each other. And that agreement is foundational, because what it does is it gives a structure for dissent. Agreement is fun. Agreement is riding the roller coaster and hanging on, or raising your hands in the air and going woo and having a good time, right? Dissent is the sticky part. And it hurts more. There's more ouch on it when you think you're in resonance and then the dissent rises up. And how you handle that when there's an emotional stake, when it's higher stakes. You see, when people are in dissent, there's lower stakes. When they're on different sides of the fence, it's actually lower stakes. The higher stakes is when you're in emotional resonance and you believe that you are like in, oh my God, I'm with my peeps. This is fantastic. And then shit hits the fan, because then the emotions get in the way of actually allowing the dissent to bubble up and to be explored and to be leaned into. So I'll give an example. I'm going to give a kind of a really colloquial example. Cuddle parties. Okay. Doug, I don't know if you know this, but I frequent what's called a cuddle party. Okay. I am missing physical touch in my life, and it's one of the ways that I get it. It's an environment of consent. All right. It's all about a yes and a no. And if it's a maybe is a no until otherwise. Okay. And you learn how to communicate. You learn how to communicate where you're at. You're allowed to change your mind. Right. You're taught how to ask and to take a no, not personally. Okay. Every cuddle party leader that I have familiarized myself with, the environments that they have created. I'm now on my 4th cuddle party leader in the last 15 years. The 3 cuddle party leaders that have fallen off by the wayside got lazy and stopped doing the basics at the front of every cuddle party. Stopped laying the ground rules at the front of every cuddle party. Oh, I don't need to do that. The majority of the people here know. Doesn't work like that.
Are they different people that come each time, or the same people?
Sometimes the same people. You got your diehards that show up every single month, and then you have the new people who come in. But what happens is if it's the same people every single time, they get lazy and they go, oh, we just know. And every single time it has wound up becoming the disintegration of the group, the disintegration of the leadership, the disintegration of the entire environment, to the point where it's had to completely shut down and reemerge in another form. You can't, humanity's nature is what humanity's nature is. And we get this ego of being involved of like, oh, I already know this. I don't have to do the basics. Ask any athlete, right? And I'll use an example of basketball. Even the most advanced master basketball players dribble and shoot hoops. Dribble and shoot hoops. It's the basics. If you can't stick to the basics, it's going to disintegrate. You can't hold due north without it. So if it's not an interaction agreement, the way we have it set up, what is it? What is it? People take ownership of what they help co-create. So co-create something that is your basics as a group that is going to assist you to hold the tone. And it is about tone. It's about tone and it's about rhythm. It's very acoustically attuned. What are you listening for? Where's the beats? Where's the pauses? Where's the ebb? Where's the flow? Feeling into that is what assists cohesion and coherence. I'll go coherence first, then possibly cohesion in a group. Nothing else. Not the task, not the vision, not all these external things that we would presume is what keeps a group together. Especially when the going gets tough and there's no money. There's no external motivators to keep everybody connected. What is it ultimately? And if you look at any of the environments where they are volunteer driven, even a board of a church, ultimately, we all have busy lives. Ultimately, we all have we have obligations. We have things that we have a finite amount of time in a given day and in a given week. What helps people stay? It's not the tasks. Kylie has a dissent, or is Kylie just, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's both,
Yeah.
right? So it's not tasks alone, and it's not people alone. It's both. So I just want to. That's my dissent.
Exactly correct. Thank you for that, Kylie.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. I think what they're thinking is that what's going to emerge is going to be specialities depending on who's in the space and in the different community assembly areas. So they've got farmers who maybe will start to attend some, and so in that area they'll be looking at stuff to do with what farmers can be doing and how they can be supported. And in other areas, they might see breakthroughs in pathways around healing or something. And then, so in that sense, it would be around broad task themes. And then what they're envisaging is that at a regional level, that would be where the integration would take place around the sense making of, so how can the farmers work with, these other areas, for example, how could that work be integrated? So that would be looked at a regional level. And I'm guessing that would be more where chirotic flow might be a useful tool, but because I don't really fully understand how the mechanisms, like the theory and the practice, would meet. I don't know. But it's interesting how I saw the patterns falling in line with stuff that we'd been talking about, but I've not really seen it happening anywhere else. And also they are keeping out funders, people of influence, founders, yeah, all of that. Yeah.
No strings, no, as Kylie would call them, perverse incentives.
Yeah.
It's cause for hope.
Yeah, watch this space, and yeah, we'll see what the universe requires. We'll, around the corner, see what kind of turns up. Just reading the text.
I just wanted to put a little pin in what Ruth was saying before around the no, and that sense of, I suppose, learning the distinguishing between no being something that is a threat to, an entire relationship or, like a big general thing, and discerning precisely what the no actually relates to, because it sort of comes back to that task and people again. So you might be a yes to the generally, I want to do something with this group, and a no to all of the tasks that are on the table at the moment. But you can also alternatively be a yes, like this is a topic or something that I want to be on. Was it like, Pam was just talking about farmers, for instance. But no, I don't want to interact with these people the way that they're interacting at the moment. So that's sort of the finding, again, Trey, that difference between the boundary and the limit, and being able to respect that space without, an automatic collapse of the two of them being Yeah, both being the same. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that thing forward because that felt important.
Yeah, it's interesting to consider the interplay of the emotional, all the stuff that we talk about here. And then there's the purely practical of, I'm a farmer, I'm going to like create this thing where I'm going to be producing all this stuff, vegetables or whatever it is. And then, so that's kind of physical. It's, you know, you don't necessarily have to have into agreements or anything like that. And over here, there's lots of people who are going to value that product because of the way that it's grown and because it's local and it's coming out of the matrix as we know it. And so then that all that's going to need is a distribution network and kind of enough numbers to make it viable from an economic point of view. And it seems like there's not an awful lot of emotional agendas. It's more like I'm just like wondering out aloud that okay, so both sets of people have got the values and they both merge, but is there that much call for this kind of stuff around emotional, you know, interaction agreements, because it's that seems to be more of a numbers game. Doug. Illuminate.
Trying to figure out where to start. There's a you know, cultural and programmatic love of aggregation, positing collective intelligence and collective values and collective this and collective that. And that's actually an abstraction that doesn't help. And it's false because there's no collective anything. In fact, there is a you know, collection of individuals and they coalesce from time to time, right? In various forms and structures and under certain banners and names and rubrics. But at the end of the day, my personal, individual, present moment, self-awareness, consciousness over what I receive, how I receive it and process it and sense make, over what I say, what I do, how I contribute to and affect the field. For me, is a full-time job. And my question before, Permjit, of you, which you actually deflected into about them, was about you in relation to them. In your agency as Parmjit, who one had the spidey sense to recognize an emergence that was worth note, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how you relate to that value add and contribution that you bring to the in the capacity of somebody who's seeing all of that, synthesizing all of that into a holistic framing and referencing and recognition and shareability to enable a broader understanding, not just for those involved in it by and between themselves, based on your take, but also the outside world relative to them, right? It's in and out, internal and external. So my tribe consists exclusively of people that are many are involved in their own pieces of the puzzle, but all of them are involved in manifesting the new, manifesting how we do this differently. And that's sort of like Voldemort. That role has no name. Like I'm really trying to figure out how to how to give that a title that nails it. I'm nowhere near, and but um, the way you were describing John, right? So he carries a present moment orientation consciousness about the it that he's helping to bring into manifestation, um, his role in it, the boundaries of that, what he wants to be in that, and what he is not explicitly willing to be in that. Right. So it's very much, I had a conversation with a colleague yesterday about um, all of the people that have value and insight and stuff to bring, but if they stir in an egocentricity, if they stir in it being about them as much as it's about what they're contributing, that it's a contaminant that affects energetically, for me, right, the ability to sort of relate. And the people that are of my tribe, and the reason they're of my tribe and who's defining my tribe is me. So I'm the god of that, and I get to have it my way. So the people that are in my tribe are people that are shoulder to the wheel doing that work. And there is no ego expression, dimension, or contamination in the role they're playing. They're just doing it.
Mhm.
They're just in pure service too. And they have really clear definition around not becoming golden idols in the doing of it, not creating golden idols in doing it. And I think in that is a really, really important piece of this, because um, in attracting or pulling in or gathering a group of people around anything, um, each individual's relationship to each individual's sense of ownership, authorship, contribution, value add, and each individual's sense of being appreciated for that value add. That's an in the instant two-way dynamic. That being full on is what has, movements thrive and people attracted to, and that has to be um, consciously, deliberately, and intentionally held by those in it. there's no seniority. There's no, this person is the founder and that person is employee 101, right? There has to be, each person is valued fully by the collective, and um, and each person values being part of the collective, that their being part of it is what contributes to it existing, it manifesting, it operating, it functioning. So that's sort of, a living version. And um, the the construct of interaction agreement, an agreement, um, and here I would, distinguish um, agreement from consent. So an agreement in terms of, the form of it, the writing of it is not the energetic important thing as an artifact. It serves as a memorialization of consent, underlying consent by each individual to a set of values or principles or orientations about the way they're going to relate to each other and the way they're going to co-create together. And then, if they're mindful, the way they instill those same values and orientations into whatever the thing is that they manifest in the world and put out there. So that all has to be in alignment, and um, adding ongoing integrated approaches to checking in on that as a living dimension every step of the way is actually a practice, a blend of practice and ritual, um, that is persistent, that's lived, um, in fact. So, the thing about Trey's example of the cuddle parties, right? What happens when I did, I don't know, 7 years pre-COVID, 35 hours a week in Zoom rooms, figuring out how to create conversational spaces and ways to talk to each other differently. And there was certain ingredients that needed to be expressed at the front end that set the room and set the terms. The people that showed up every week were the same people, but the statement of that framing was always a statement of the frame, that that defined things, that voiced what the collective consent was. Now, most orientations in this, in the way our culture works right now, is that that's for the newbie, but that's when running through that script becomes routine. It no longer is meant. It no longer has energy, right? And the minute that happens, then people are relatively more disconnected, listening a little less closely, a little less present, and you're on the road to um, losing the connection that energizes the space. So, rituals are really interesting things, and they're very different than habits. So a habit is a utilitarian repeated behavior for a purpose. Rituals have three components. One of them is that intrinsically there's repetition in it, and that it's something that's practiced and learned by all of the people who engage in it. In the practice of it, and there need be a practice in it, there is each individual gets to develop competency in it. When they arrive at church, they know how to do the service. They know how to do their part when the part comes up and they're supposed to say something out loud or read from the teleprompter, whatever. It's that program behavior, but each person knows that they're as competent as everybody else in that room in that practice. So that gives you that I'm adding value by my presence and participation, and I'm also acknowledged and recognized as knowing how. Right? The other piece is that it, by definition, not be utilitarian. It is not for a reason, an output, a product, a task. It's not task oriented. It is for the act of doing with others, period, in and of itself, as a cohesion, as a collective knowing and manifesting and energizing with others, right? So not purpose driven, which is why it's not a habit, it's a ritual. It stands on its own legs. And the third piece is that there is a higher spiritual, energetic dimension transcendent of self, that's being served, and that each participant is a beneficiary of. So almost on a purely energetic level. So what have we done to that? Like, how many people actually in church are fully present, connected on an emotional level to the rituals that they go through the motions of? That's why attendance at church is going away. The churches are, they're losing worshipers. Like, all of that breaking down is because the rituals are not energetically alive. People are not experientially, emotionally, energetically connected. They're going through the motions. So how do you maintain energizing values, shared values, consents, behaviors, decisions, that make the collective a collective as a living organism, not as an organization? And that takes intent, and that takes commitment. And the practice of that, the structures for doing that, are very different than the structures and practices of like a business today. But it is possible to integrate that level of energizing and awareness at every moment, in every context, decision, meeting, action of every individual within an organization. But first, you have to acknowledge and recognize that this additional facet exists. And in the world we live in, not so much.
Yeah. Well, and this is exciting
Yeah.
for Ruth, because Ruth is witnessing this as we're leaning into the matrixing for eighth flame right now.
Yeah.
Because that actually becomes the rhythm, becomes the ritual, if you will, that makes the difference. But establishing it on the front end takes a bit of time. So I have two other individuals waiting to get into a call. And they've been waiting for about 6 minutes, 7 minutes. So this was lovely. This was Harmjit. Thank you for the prompt. So let's just do a brief checkout value from today, please. Whoever would like to go first.
So I would love to go first so that I can respond to what Doug's just said. That was so lovely and nurturing and clarifying. I made some notes, but I'm going to have to listen to this whole thing all again because all of your contributions, I think, have got something for me to take into the group and the thing that I'm writing. I really liked whatever phrase you said at the beginning, something like master of the present moment orientation. I love that. And yeah, I've made some other notes too. So I'll leave it at that for now because Trey has to go. Yeah, I've had spade loads of value from here. Thank you. I'll pass it on to Ruth.
Thank you, Parm. Thank you, everybody. Kylie sending healing. Yeah, wow. Just a very yeah, deep bubbles of excitement. In terms of my own responsibility to craft. It's interesting because I teach class tonight and I am having a party. Both of these are spaces that I get to set up intentionally. So I'm, yes, it feels like I'm at a threshold of starting to do that in a whole deepened way that supports everything we're talking about. Yeah, okay. And I'll pass to Trey.
Oh, this is so much. There's so much. I guess probably the best way to check out is to say present moment orientation consciousness, which is the words that I wrote down. The quest, in colloquial terms, who am I going to be in this moment? That's all that matters. There's nothing else. There is nothing else. You know, we can put frameworks on it and labels on it and all that kind of stuff. But to me, this is just the essence of what we're doing and how we're being right now. And I am fully convinced that all of this is germinating. I just don't know what the butterfly looks like. I just know what the caterpillar looked like. We're in the goo of it and the primordial goo of it. And I love it. So with that, I will pass to Doug.
I really, Parmjeet, I really appreciate your share. It's really juicy, and I would love to see if it's shareable. Would love to see your write up when you're done. Thank you for that. And Kylie.
So I'm looking forward to watching this again at some point when I can take it in a bit better. The feeling I'm going with is that I want to pick up a lot of things that felt like threads and like still open threads, and hopefully pick up again next time, whichever ones still feel alive at that point. So I feel like there are a lot of things there from, you know, Doug's comments about collectives and, you know, I put a question in the thing of like, is there a tribe without tribing? And, you know, a few other things. I've completely lost count, so I'll have to watch again. So thank you all for
That whole
tolerating
idea of nouning the verb and getting back to the verb without the noun. Yeah. 100%. All right. Blessings. Thank you to each and every one of you. I will, as soon as this recording is parsed, because it sounds like everybody wants a copy of it, my only request is please download it and take it, because I have to get it off of my Zoom or it holds up space. Okay. So I will put the link into the into our chat. And then please, if you want it, download it as soon as possible so that I can take it off. Because otherwise I just take it off and then people go, oh, I didn't get it downloaded. And then I got to try to find the damn thing and try to figure out how to get it to you. So perfect. Thank you much. All right. Mwah. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.